What we saw ultimately in response to the events of the last 10 days, actually, is Gary Cohn deciding to remain with this government and in support of President Trump here. Do you think he did that ultimately in order to try and secure a role as the head of the Federal Reserve? And do you think his chances rose as a result?
Well, Julia, I think that, look, obviously there was a sea change politically inside the White House on Friday with the resignation of Steve Bannon. That was the sort of, if you will, near final or approximate final nail in the coffin for the so-called nationalists inside of Trump's government, giving the globalists led by Gary Cohn and Javanka a big sort of boost, which probably means that any thought that Gary had of resigning probably went out the window now, and he reverts back to this idea that he can make more of a difference inside the administration than outside it. My point was that, for his own dignity, for his own sanity, for his own well-being, on principle, he should resign because it's the right thing to do. I mean, after the charade on Tuesday afternoon in the lobby of Trump Tower following the events of Charlottesville, I would have thought it would be very difficult for Gary Cohn to want to stay working for this president.
But you were very tough on him in this New York article. You kind of suggested he was putting ego and his personal ambitions ahead of anything else, and yet there you've just kind of suggested that perhaps he recognises that he needs to remain within this administration to be a moderating influence. You can't have it both ways. You were really harsh on him.
Okay, first of all, I believe I can have it both ways, because here was my point, Julia. It is his ego what's driving him now, because as you pointed out, he does want to be Fed chairman. Obviously, if he quits, he's not going to be Fed chairman. If he complains about Trump's behavior last Tuesday, he's not going to be Fed chairman. If he remains silent and says nothing to anybody except a few little complaints here and there, maybe he can skate by. Now Bannon is gone. The nationalists are gone. Maybe he probably feels, and I've spoken to him about this, he probably feels that he can make a difference staying in this administration to accomplish some of the policy proposals that your previous guest was talking about, tax reform, infrastructure, whatever it is. But it's not exactly clear that this president has the political capital to pull off any of those things anymore. It seems to me that Gary Cohn has his reputation at stake and should forego his desire to be Fed chairman, should forego his quote-unquote desire to, make a difference when it's really not going to happen at this point, I don't think, with tax policy.